Hey everyone, it is Tony Will. I am back with another phenomenal episode of Women In. Before you meet my next guest, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women from all walks of life and the people who uplift them. Each episode features incredible voices from my world, sharing stories that spark inspiration, challenge the status quo, and remind us that empowering women empowers everyone. This is a bold, curious, and uncensored space where disruption is welcome, forward thinking is encouraged, and change is the goal. I'm passionate about breaking down barriers, not just for us, but for the next generation. Whether our paths cross professionally or personally, these conversations matter. Let's dive in and celebrate the power of connection, growth, and the people who are shaping our world. And this guest is definitely one of the women shaping our world. Melissa Nash lost a multi-million-dollar business in her 40s and found herself broke, burned out, and starting over. Real estate became her comeback plan, and it worked. In less than 6 years, she built a $5 million plus rental portfolio using what she now calls her lazy investor method. Strategic systems that build wealth without flipping houses, managing tenants, or flying across the country. Today, Melissa teaches busy professionals how to do the same. Her students have purchased more than $500 million in rental properties, with many generating $3,000 plus per month in passive income in their first year. She's proof that the financial freedom doesn't require sacrificing your life. It's about building smart, sustainable systems. Melissa has flipped and renovated over 50 out-of-state properties, grown her own portfolio of short and long-term rentals, and helped each of her 4 children buy their first rental before turning 18, making generational wealth a family affair. When she's not mentoring investors, Melissa's traveling with her family, quilting, or designing unique spaces for her Airbnb properties, living proof that real estate can be your path to freedom, not your second job. Hey, Melissa.
Hi, that was such a long intro. Thank you for reading all of that. I've forgotten that, I don't hear it read out loud very often. So thank you.
Yeah, I am roll live. Well, the pod isn't live, but I like to read everything that is sent over by my guest because it's the first way before we even dive into the conversation. I get to lift my guest up, and it's kind of cool to hear your bio back and just to take a minute in the mindfulness to be like, wow, I am this badass chick who lost everything and built it all back and then some.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, who is this badass girl? She's pretty cool. It really does feel good to hear somebody else say those words. So
yeah.
Nice way to wake up every day. I'll just call you up and say, can you read that to me again, Tony?
I will. I've grown to love hearing my bio read just because it allows me to sit in it and not, because imposter syndrome can creep in a little bit sometimes, I'm sure. And I'm sure we can talk about that too. But before we dive in, let's tell everyone how we came into each other's lives. I think it's always interesting to know how the power of connectivity is when someone reaches out and the other person says yes or vice versa. And it doesn't have to be this long, we've known each other for 20 years thing, although sometimes that's cool too. But how did we come into each other's lives?
Basically, you have an amazing podcast that really fits my mission. I am on a mission to empower women in this space because and I'm not talking about being a real estate agent. There's a lot of female real estate agents. I'm talking about real estate investors who are women. I'm always surrounded by a room full of suits. And I was just telling this to somebody the other day. They're like, what makes women investors so unique? And I was like, well, there's so few of us. And so when I see another female across the room at an event, we make eye contact immediately. We're like, okay, let's connect, let's talk. We just have this internal, I don't know what it is, but we just are like, women attract women who are doing the same thing. And especially when you're in this room full of suits, I'm like, okay, I got to connect with that person. And there's so few of us that those connections are always amazing. And so that is my goal, is to tell more women. I want to scream it from the rooftops, is like, you can do this. Let's do this together.
Yes, we align 100% on all the things. Because I'm going to ask you questions about this real estate investment, but being myself in a male dominated industry in professional hockey, I am always seeking out not only the women, but people of color too, because hockey is just so white. And if you're listening to this, I'm white, and Melissa, I believe you are white too, just by looking at you. And so I wasn't used to being a minority, at least in my mind, until I walked into this world over a decade ago. But I'm so glad I did, because it opened up my eyes to how that feels. And then being seen by someone who either is in the same minority demographic or in a different minority demographic, and we can kind of come together and feel seen and heard, and not afraid to say, hey, I see that you are the only one in the room too. And let's join forces.
Yep, exactly. There's like an instant camaraderie there.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I want to talk about the difference, as you aptly pointed out, between investors and realtors, and your definition of that, because, and I would imagine, well, I know my realtor is an investor too, and you could be both. So, and she's a woman, which is super cool. So walk my audience through that. So if they're listening to this and they're like, wait, I'm intrigued. So your definitions.
Yeah. So, well, I'll kind of back up and say that, after I lost, this business that my husband and I had built, we lost it just right after the 2009 crash. And, it was a children's clothing business. We were manufacturing and shipping from overseas, and we were selling to small boutique stores. And the boutique stores were going out of business. Like, they just couldn't sustain, selling, $100 pair of children's jeans, in that time frame. And this is kind of before Amazon. Amazon was just kind of like getting started. That's a whole other thing and a whole other conversation. But at the time, so our stores were going out of business, and we were lucky enough to be able to sell that business. It wasn't for a lot, but it was enough to kind of get out of it and kind of take a deep breath and figure out what we wanted to do again. And I had always gone back to the idea of real estate. I've just always really liked it. And I thought, I'm going to get my real estate license, because I know wealthy people are real estate investors. I didn't know how or what or why or anything. And so I thought, I got to get my real estate license. So I live here in Southern California. I got my real estate license. I learned absolutely nothing about real estate investing. I mean, even I would say the courses are, it's all about this. You think of an investor as like, I'll say it this way, because this is how I imagine it in my mind, a person wearing a suit that's buying these large apartment complexes, or, the tall skyscrapers, or, that's what I think of as an investor. And that's kind of what you learn in real estate school. You don't learn about the everyday, teacher that's like, hey, I want to buy a single family house, and create some cash flow. And that doesn't exist. So I was a little disappointed. Became a real estate agent. And of course, I started like everybody else, sitting in open houses and, trying to pick up clients and driving them around. And I was like, I hate this. I hate this so much. I'm wasting my time. It's not moving quick enough. I need fast pace. And so I really started just researching, like, how can I become a real estate investor? And that started kind of my education. So if you are an agent, if you're listening out there, you do have to work to learn about actual real life real estate investing for the everyday person. You're definitely not going to get it in real estate school.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so let's talk about this. There's a lot of this on TV now, right? Like HGTV and
yep.
And there's flipping, and then there's investing, and then there's renting it out. And, they condense it all beautifully into 30 minutes. And it seems like it's so easy. So tell me, has that world where, because clearly people are interested in this, and the world of investing in real estate, flipping real estate, selling real estate, and kind of some of, like I mentioned, merge it all together. Does that help or hurt the realities of this way to earn income?
Well, so let me separate. There's two different types of real estate investing. There's active investing and there's passive investing. And active investing is that HGTV kind of a thing where you buy a distressed property, you renovate it, you put some value to it, and then you can make it as fancy as you want it to be, depending on where the area is that you're selling it to. And then you can either sell it to, somebody who's going to buy it and move in with their family, or you could keep it and put a long-term renter in place. But it's a full-time job. You're literally, finding the deal and hiring the contractor and overseeing the contractor. And, it really is a lot of work. And it is a beneficial thing to be a real estate agent because you get access to a lot of inventory. So this is the most common thing that real estate agents do, is because they can find a property that's distressed, and then they can be local and they can hire a contractor, and then they can resell it and get the commissions from it. So that's the most common thing you see most real estate agents doing. Now, what I do is passive investing. And passive investing is where it's my lazy method, where I'm not actually doing any of the work. So I'm not finding the property myself. I'm not going on the MLS and finding properties. I'm not hiring contractors. I'm not overseeing. So I'm not doing any of that active work. So basically what I have built out for the last 10 years is partnerships with people, those flippers, somebody who's doing that kind of HGT flipping in different markets throughout the United States that are more affordable than California, where the math kind of makes more sense. And I've partnered with them, and I've said, hey, you know what? You're doing a great job renovating these properties in Birmingham, Alabama. When you're done renovating that, give me access to it before you put it on the MLS. And I've built that in these different markets. So now myself and the clients that I'm working with, we can buy a property in Birmingham, Alabama without flying there, without hiring a contractor, without managing it. Because that's the other piece, is who's going to manage this property? Because I'm putting long-term tenants in that property. I'm not selling it. So I'm buying it already renovated, putting a tenant in, and then I'm hiring a local property manager that's been vetted out, and they do all the work. So I'm truly being as lazy as possible, where I can just buy it and set it aside and just, collect the rent from the tenants, and there's cash flow there. And of course, we know real estate goes up in value. So the properties are going up in value, and then I get that, the tax benefits, all the amazing things with real estate, while I'm like sitting on my couch here in Southern California.
Now, let me ask you this, because I've been to California many times, and I have a lot of friends and clients and all this in California. It is very expensive to live there. Do you have any properties in California at all? Or do you specifically say, like, Kalamazoo, Michigan would probably be a perfect market for you?
Right. Yeah. So I do have short-term rentals here.
Okay.
I would never, ever do long-term rentals here because of the landlord laws. We kind of joke around about it, but if you have a tenant that's not paying their rent, by the time it goes through the court system and an actual eviction, they'll have been living in your house for free for 2 years. It's extremely difficult. So not only that, the math doesn't make sense as far as by the time you buy it and put a tenant in place, you're underwater, you're backwards. I'm not going to buy an $800,000 property and put a tenant in there for $2,000 a month. I'm just going to be losing money. But short-term rentals do make sense if you're buying them in the right areas, because you can get a lot more cash flow and charge a lot more for nightly stays.
Right. Yeah. Like, because I'm in Michigan, so along the lake shore in the summer, those type of things, or even up north more in Michigan in the winter, near the ski resorts or whatever. So yeah,
exactly. And then with those short-term rentals, I get to use them too. I'm actually in Palm Springs at one of my short-term rentals right now. When nobody's here, I can use it. I can come here. So it's kind of a benefit for our family as well.
So tell me about building this business, and I love the term, because lazy is kind of a polarizing word, because people get offended if they're called lazy. Most people do, but you're sitting here embracing it and saying, yeah, this is a lazy method, but you're getting money, you're generating revenue. So talk to me about how you decide to name it this, and is the catchiness of it, the polarizing nature of it, part of the marketing, and getting the word out there and enticing people to learn from you?
Yeah, that's it exactly. It's funny because, so I've been investing for 11 years now is when I really started investing with learning what I was doing and taking action. We'll put it that way. A lot of people sit in analysis paralysis for a long time. And so I look at my true windows when I was taking action. And that was about 11 years ago. I bought my first rental. And then a few years after that, people were like, what are you doing, Melissa? Like, how are you buying a property, 2,000 miles away? And, what's going on? And so then I was like, okay, maybe I'll tell you. And then I really enjoyed teaching people what I had learned. And I've never thought of myself as an educator or anything like that, but I found to absolutely love teaching and helping people. And I'm learning along with them as well. So I'm right there learning and doing too. And so we're kind of doing this all together. Again, it's kind of like this camaraderie thing. But anyways, so as I've been building up my coaching business, everybody's like telling you, like on the marketing side, they're like, do social media and do Instagram and, do all these things and post reels and you're doing all this exciting stuff. And I was like, I don't do anything exciting. Like I'm literally on my couch and I'm shopping for properties and emailing people or I'm coaching my students and I'm like in my pajamas. And so everybody's like, well, actually that's kind of cool. That's the dream. That's actually the life. People want your life. And I'm like, okay, I think my life is pretty awesome where I'm in my pajamas all day working and growing my portfolio. And so I remember the term, I kind of use this a little bit, is lazy couch potato money is a term that I say. If you've got money sitting aside in a bank account earning almost nothing, your money is lazy couch potato money sitting there. We got to put that money to work. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, lazy couch potato. Am I a lazy couch potato? I'm working, but I'm working from my couch in my pajamas. So that's kind of where that all kind of came in.
Oh, it's so fun. I love just the embracing of it. And it tells a story. It paints a really good picture. Okay, so you mentioned the laws in each state, specifically California. So as you've grown this business and you're coaching others and teaching, is part of this understanding the different laws in each state? And are there certain states where you have been investing more because the laws for renters and tenants is much, not as stringent and living in a property for 2 years? So how do you talk? I guess I'll let you take it from there because it's kind of a broad topic, but...
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. There are different laws in different states. And at the end of the day, it's not that I want to be a bad landlord. It's not that I want to take advantage of people. I am very proud of what I do. I am buying properties that are newly renovated, that have new roofs and new windows and new electrical. I'm creating safe, affordable housing for somebody that can afford it. I'm not trying to jack up the rents and be a jerk in any way. However, there are always going to be people that want to take advantage of you. I've got I've got a tenant right now that's trying to take advantage. And so you want to make sure that you can replace and move those people out if necessary. And again, the property managers get to be the bad guys. I don't have to be, because I would have a bleeding heart. I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry you're late on your rent. I would have a very hard time with it. So another reason I'm running my business as a business and I'm letting the property managers kind of deal with the tenant. They know the laws in the area. And so I kind of detour that to them. But yeah, there's states, funny enough, is Arkansas is the only state in the country where it's actually still in the laws illegal to not pay your rent. So technically, somebody could go to jail if they don't pay their rent. It's still in the laws. Now, do they do that? No. However, one thing that I have learned, when you are buying in a state like Tennessee or Alabama or Kansas City, or these are the areas that I'm buying in. Tenants know if they don't pay their rent and they go stand before a judge, if it gets that far, the judge is not going to care about their excuse. Did you pay your rent or not? And then they're going to get a big fat eviction stamped on their credit, and no one's going to rent to them again. Mm-hmm. They know that. So most tenants, if they are having a hard time paying or they stop paying, they dip out in the middle of the night because they don't want to get the court judgment. So it doesn't even have to go to that point. But I will say, like in Tennessee right now, I am dealing with an eviction, like the second eviction I've ever dealt with in like 10 years. So it's really not that common. But if a tenant, they didn't pay by 30 days and they were in court the next week, right after that. So it's very quick. And I think I paid $500 to the attorney that's working on it for me. gosh, I don't even know how much that would be in California, and it would be like 2 years later. So, it is smart to buy in areas that are landlord friendly. And again, it's not because I want to be a slumlord or a jerk. It's just because people do take advantage, and sometimes this is a business. We got to run it like a business.
Absolutely. Talk to me. Okay, let's talk about the lazy method, and this might be part of this question. So, is it like a certain step method, 5-step, 3-step, or tell me about that? And then when people come to you, because I would imagine I'm putting this hat on, and I'm like, I'm interested in this. The first thing I'd want to know is, how much do I need to invest in order to get started?
That's a great question. I'm so glad that you asked that, because people don't know. And so people don't know. Okay, right now I was talking to a client of mine, and I was like, hey, I've got a property in Kansas City that one of my teams just sent over to me. This is not on the MLS. This is directly to me. The property in Kansas City is a pretty decent area. It was $190,000 to purchase it. And again, this property is already renovated. So new roof, new plumbing, new electrical, everything has been done. And then what I do for my clients is, if you're working with me, I call it a coaching mentorship kind of a system. So I'm working with you to educate you on, how to find the best markets, how to read the numbers, how to know a good property from a bad property, how to work with lenders, how to know the language. But then like, education is great, but what about the action? I want you to take action. I want you to do it. So I will literally send you properties through my network that you can actually buy. You don't have to. You can go find your own. Great, do that. But part of the lazy system, again, most of my clients are W-2 full-time working professionals, and they just be like, tell me what to buy, Melissa. Yeah. So that's the other part of it, is because of the connections that I have built out, and now it's kind of a system within this ecosystem that I've created. I basically will put together all the numbers for you. So I put together all the projections. So I get the numbers from the property manager, what it's going to rent for. And then I project, okay, this is what the returns are going to be year 1, year 5, all the way to year 30. So it's done for you, essentially. And so that property in Kansas City that we were going over this morning was $190,000. It rents for over $1,800 a month. And so once we include all of your expenses, we take out your expenses, that property was cash flowing over $500 a month. And year 1, it was almost a 15% return. So to me, it's like, okay, do you want your money to sit in a bank and earn 0.001, or if you're lucky, a high yield at 3.5%? Or you get this cash flowing property that goes up in value, gives you tax benefits. The tenant is paying down your mortgage. At the end of the day, the property's actual return year 1 is about 40%. when you include all those things. So you as an investor can come to me, and once you've learned about, I want you to learn about real estate. I don't want to just hand you the property. I can do that, but I want you to learn and be able to do it for yourself. And I want you to have that knowledge and understand how to analyze a property. That's so important to me, is to take that education and not just take what I'm handing to you, really learn it. And so investment properties, you have to put 20% down. Okay. So 20% of that 190 is what? I don't have my calculator. 190 times 20% down. Yeah, $38,000 okay. Plus, let's say about $6,000. Let's just say $45,000 you can get into this property. But your money is earning 15%. And that's what cash on cash return is. I'll just kind of throw out a little education there, is your $45,000 you put down, let's say, is earning 15% year one. And then every year there's rental increases. So now you're earning more each year. So that's how I look at it, is I want to know how hard my money is working for me, like that cash that I put in. And anybody can do this. The loans are so easy to get for investors. There's amazing loan programs right now. And, you know, if anybody's, and by the way, I'm also using interest rate as of today. That return is including the interest rates that we're seeing. So there's no excuse for the person that's going, but interest rates are high. No, you're still earning 15% on this property. You're good.
Yeah. And so, okay. So when you were saying, and where are the returns higher? And maybe they aren't, but is it short-term or long-term renters?
Great question. So if we go back to short-term rentals are active investing, long-term rentals are passive investing.
Got it.
So you can earn more on a short-term rental, but you're more involved. Whether you're managing it yourself or if you're working with a property manager, I manage my own because I don't want to pay a property manager 30%. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But I have automated systems and I teach people short-term rentals as well. But I'm paying all the bills. I'm paying all the utilities. I'm paying, I'm hearing my gardener saying, hey, the pool pump isn't working. And, hey, you got to get a plumber out here. And, I am dealing with that and paying a lot more for that. But it is definitely active investing. And so I think that's the most important question that I start with anybody that's wanting to work with me or be a part of this program is I'm like, let's set up your goals. Like, do you want a second job or do you want this to be passive? Because we're going to go completely different routes depending on that answer.
Yeah, it's so interesting, this topic and the business you've built. So walk me through the coaching process. So do you have like different packages that you're like there are, and I'm going to use my husband and I as an example. My husband I'm intrigued, but my husband would be next level. When he listens to this, he's going to be like very intrigued in this, what you've built and how you're helping other people become what you are. And so what does that look like? How do you build your coaching packages?
Yeah, so I keep it very simple. I have two ways, and I love to talk to everybody on the phone and really, actually I have three main things that I help people with that they can be a part of. And I want to put you in the right place. Mm-hmm. So if I'm speaking to somebody that's never invested in real estate before, I work with funny enough, for some reason I work with a lot of teachers, a lot of firemen, a lot of pharmacists. For whatever reason, those tend to be the three most common. But anyways, anybody can invest, right? And so I want to hear about your goals, how much money you have, what you're trying to do. If you want to do short-term rentals, if you're a W-2 employee and you really want tax breaks, sometimes short-term rentals are the way to go because we can get some massive, massive tax breaks that offset your W-2 income that you cannot get with long-term rentals. So if that's your goal, we might be talking about the short-term rental program that I do have, that it's a coaching mentorship program. It's an online course mixed with hands-on mentorship. If you have never invested in real estate before and you want to do it very passively, then I'm going to recommend my long-term rental course, Passively Rich with Rentals. It also is an online course that you take, but it's built for action. So again, it's very much like, here, let's goal set. And you're doing everything on your own time, but you are learning how to goal set. Then you have different check-in points with me and along the way. But then again, it's like, okay, we're learning about how to get qualified with a lender. Well, now I want you to actually call a lender. Here's a bunch of recommended lenders. Let's take action. Then it's like, okay, let's run the numbers. We're running real numbers, real spreadsheets, real properties that you could actually buy if you want. And so you're actually taking action with every single step in the program. Then towards the end, you're under contract. And this is the part that I wish I had, is like, I just want somebody there to be there as a mentor to kind of hold my hand. Like, hey, I just got the inspection report back. What do you think? What should I do? I'm putting in an offer on this property. What should I do? All the way through, hey, I just talked to this great property manager and I think they're awesome. What should I do? What should I be asking them? It's those types of things that I just always wanted somebody to just kind of hold my hand and bounce things off of and be a mentor. So that's what's inside this program. It's taking action with mentorship, and I'm actually handing you my connections and my Rolodex. So I'm aging myself by saying Rolodex.
I'm right there with you.
But I'm literally giving you my Rolodex. Like, I am not holding back because I'm like, we're sharing the wealth. In fact, one of my clients yesterday sent me over a new property manager in Alabama that she's loving. And I'm like, amazing. I'm always looking for another property manager. So it's very much so we're sharing with each other as we're all taking action together. So I give everybody everything that I know, all the teams that I know, connections that I know, off-market properties that I know. So then there's that. Then there's the person that's like, hey, you know what? I'm kind of an investor already. I've bought a couple properties. I just kind of want to get access to your team, your Rolodex and your properties and everything you've built. And so I do have an inventory only. It's $197 a month, and you get access to all of the deals that I'm getting. So like that deal in Kansas City that I was just telling you about, that's off market. You're not going to see it on the MLS, and that's through my direct connection. So you'll get access to anywhere between 30 and 40 properties a month that I personally hand pick and vet out. And you can be a part of that, where you can just kind of hang out and take advantage of all that.
Wow. So many great offerings. Now, you've mentioned this a couple times, so I want to ask about this, the taking action part. In addition to my day job, I'm a lifestyle coach. I help people reduce or remove alcohol specifically from their lives. I'm a non-drinker. And then I do professional development coaching. And in a former life, I was a personal trainer and all. Okay, so I've been in coaching in various forms. I would say one of the things that I see challenge my clients is what you mentioned, taking action. They come to us as experts, which is phenomenal. They've taken this step. But then I see the execution part is the most challenging. Are you seeing the same challenge?
Absolutely. That is why this program is so unique, because you can go online, you can listen to podcasts, you can go on YouTube, you can work with a coach. And here's the thing that has driven me crazy. Oh my gosh, there's real estate coaches, gurus out there that charge $40, $50, $100,000, and there's no action. You know what I mean? It's just, they're just throwing out knowledge, which is great. I love knowledge, but you just spent $50,000 on a coaching program and you didn't buy a rental property? Like, I can't even stomach that. I think that is terrible. Like, I want you to actually take that money. I'm not going to charge you $50,000, not even a fraction of that. I want you to take action and buy a rental property and start building your financial freedom. So that is so important to me, is like, I'm not giving anybody any excuses. If you want to work with me, you will have a property under contract in under 90 days. Because that is how it's built. I built it for action. So there's no excuses. You're going to do it.
I love that. And I love the hard line. Like, no, you are, and know that when you're working with me and before you decide to spend the money, because you'll be able to weed out right away, like those that are like, so that's really cool.
Yeah. I just got off the phone with a client of mine, and she's on her 4th property already this year. And I'm just like, I'm her number one cheerleader. I mean, I work with men and women. I work with, all genders, but, especially a special soft spot in my heart for my women clients. And I'm like, girl, you're doing it. And she's a nurse. Yeah. I'm just so proud of her.
Well, and it's such a confidence builder when you achieve these goals, like financial goals. And that's one of the things I get asked a lot, like, how are you so confident? I'm like, and I had to think about this answer, but it was around accomplishing goals. And they don't have to be giant ones, but there's little things, little accomplishments that add up to the big purchase. And in your business example, so it's making the phone call to a coach like you, a mentor, and looking at your program, and like that's one. Okay, we've done that. Next, it's committing financially. Then, and hitting all these different goals and completing them. It's a success all along the way, not just when you close on the property. That's like the big success, or when you start to get revenue and the ROI.
That's it exactly. It's like those baby steps. Like, I always tell people, I don't care if you're looking to buy a property today or next year. Talk to a lender. Yep. Like, get your ducks lined up in a row. Get your questions answered that you're scared of, just kind of move one step forward. Talking to a lender is a scary one. And it doesn't mean you have to buy a property tomorrow, but it's just building relationships. This is a relationship building business. I would not be where I am today if I did not have a relationship with my lenders. My lenders that I work with work with investors only, and they're my strategists. They're helping me scale and grow. And, where's my next money coming from? Am I doing a cash out refinance? Am I doing a HELOC? Am I, maybe I'm going to sell a property? And, they are my strategists working with me to grow and scale. So all of it is people building and relationship building. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about the women in your life who have helped shape you to the woman you are today. So, Melissa, who are those women?
Interesting enough. So the person that I think of first that's in the back of my mind, I mean, I guess just real estate wise, maybe I'm kind of taking your question a different direction. My husband's grandmother she was an inspiration because she passed away years and years ago, and she never really got to be a real estate mentor to me. However, she got her real estate license in Los Angeles in the 60s and 70s. Which is really cool. Like, you don't hear of that very often. And her family were carnies. They were carnival people. So they would like travel and go all over. And so she was very personable. She was very, she was the person that was like, hey, come throw a ring. And, trying to gather the people at the carnival, and just very outgoing and, just really fun, bright personality. And so I can see her as a real estate agent, like back then, just attracting people. But anyways, she would take a commission on a property, and she would buy a single family house in Los Angeles. Like, she would just take her money, 20% down, and buy a rental, put a tenant in place. And she didn't know it at the time, but her husband passed away in the 80s. And so she was probably in her 60s when he passed away. And her survival was because of the rental properties, the rental income that was coming in from these properties. So she had she didn't have to go to work. She didn't have to worry about how she was going to support herself. Her rental properties did it. And they grew. And if you can imagine buying rental properties in Los Angeles back then, and just the appreciation of them. I mean, by the time I'd met her, she was rich grandma. She was going on cruises, and she would go to Mexico with her girlfriends. I mean, she was just living it up and having this amazing retirement. And I was like, what is going on? Who is this woman? What is happening here? It was just so cool. And she passed away shortly after my husband and I got married. So I didn't get to hear all the stories about why. Everybody is basically like, she didn't really have a strategy or a purpose. She just knew real estate went up in value. That was it. And so I've always kind of in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, single family, they go up in value. Just come up with 20% down, buy a property, hold it, hold those properties long term. So everything I'm building, everything I'm doing is for future retirement, financial freedom, of family generational wealth. This is how the richest families in the country create generational wealth. They own real estate. They pass real estate down. They teach their kids how to create wealth. And it is a family affair. If you are doing your kids a disservice if you don't teach them what you know and what you've done, and how to respect money and how to grow your money and all the things. So that's always been my goal, is passing that down to my daughters, giving them financial security so they're not just reliant on, their spouse. I want them to build their own financial security as well.
That's really cool. What was your husband's grandmother's name?
Wanda.
Wanda. Oh my gosh. She's just, with her name like Wanda, she sounds like a character. And
She was.
Like, she's probably a little feisty. I'm just picturing this. And
tiny little feisty thing. Absolutely.
Yep. And I would love to ask her a million questions, but like, being a female real estate agent in the 60s in LA, like, come on. I mean, that's
right.
Cool. Yeah,
totally.
I'm sure she had stories for days. So tell me, I want to talk about books you're reading, or books you would recommend, or podcasts, because you touched on that a little bit. People may be listening to podcasts to learn about the world you're in and the business you've created and generational wealth you're doing for your 4 kids and teaching them these things. So where do you point people with that good reading or good listening, that it's not just the bullshit?
The number one book that everybody has to read is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It is the most recommended real estate book. And to this day, I don't think I've ever spoken to anybody on the phone that said they were not inspired by that book. That is the number one book that everybody absolutely has to start with. Even people that aren't like real estate education doesn't seem very exciting, but the way that this book is written, it's all storytelling. Mm-hmm. And it's the differences of how he grew up having a rich dad and a poor dad. And, it's just a mindset shift. It's a complete, because we are not taught this in school. In fact, the whole conspiracy theory of it is this is on purpose. We are not taught to be entrepreneurs. We are taught to be employees. And And so this book breaks that down and goes, one dad's an entrepreneur and one dad's an employee. And it just is a mind shift thing where you're like awoken and you're like, oh my gosh. And that's how it was for me. And then of course the 4-Hour Work Week, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. You know, these mindset books are the ones that for me were the ones that kind of cracked it and went, wait a minute. I don't have to work this corporate 9-to-5 job. I can create this thing for myself and my family. And so it kind of, they kind of gave me the inspiration and the encouragement. So those for sure. I do have a podcast. My podcast is Passively Rich with Rentals. And I try to think of my most beginner client and I try to speak to them on the podcast and try to explain things as if I was, you know, talking to somebody brand new. And so that's obviously a great place to start as well.
Yeah. And do you do just solo podcasts where you're just sharing your teachings?
Mostly, yes. Yeah. Sometimes I'll bring on some guests like lenders or, you know, different things like that. But I am just trying to do basic real estate coaching on there and just try to give people, you know, the encouragement and, you know, you can do this. Anybody can do this. This is not for the rich. This is not for the fancy person in a business suit. This is the everyday person can do this.
That's really cool. So where I want to know, so, cause you have a soft spot in your heart for women is what you were saying. So, and although you work with men too, so that you may have answered the question already, but I'd like to ask it more directly. So how do you support and lift women up?
You know what? I am their number one cheerleader. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. I have 3 daughters and I've done this. I mean, my husband's been there with me. He's been he supports me. He trusts me. I'm very, very lucky to have a spouse that's just like, hey, I trust you, go for it. You know, I'm very aware that that's not everybody's situation. And so I will be that support for women, whether they have that support at home or not, that if I can do this, you can do this. And honestly, that's what it's just a lot of hand holding and cheerleading and being like, yes, girl, you got this. You can do it. Don't doubt yourself. That's what I feel my role is with my clients.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel too. And you strike me as someone that has an abundance mindset. You're not in competition with anyone. That's why you have a business where you're teaching other people how to do what you're doing. And it's like there's room for everyone. It's not just because you could have kept this all to yourself and you chose not to. So that just says a lot right there about your integrity and how your mindset on life and the businesses you operate. It's so cool. So if people are interested in your work, Melissa, and talking with you, learning more about your business, your website, social handles, we already mentioned your podcast, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the number one place is HelloMelissaNash.com. My website there, you can book a call with me. Again, like these calls are more just kind of like, hey, where are you at? Let's talk about it and see if I can help you or not. I may or may not. They may have an option. I might recommend you to something else. So I always have free strategy calls, but then I also have some freebies on there. I've got the Lazy Investor's Guide, How to Be a Lazy Investor. That's on there. It's a free download. So go ahead and grab that up. It's the basics of just kind of everything we've been talking about and just kind of outlining it so you can kind of go back and reread it and stuff. And again, it's built on encouragement. Like that's my number one thing is anybody can do this and we should all be doing it. We shouldn't be waiting for opportunities. We've got to go out there and grab them for ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic. It's great to get to know you and learn about what it is you do. And I have not had anyone like you or your business on my podcast, and that's pretty darn cool. So congratulations on everything you've accomplished. And I'm excited to see it continue to flourish. I am not hard to find, as my audience knows. If you want to check out the hockey side of my life, that's at kwings.com. And then everything else related to the Women in Podcast, my TEDx, the book coming out next year. What else am I doing? Empower Her Conference 2026. I don't know. You guys know my coaching. It's at TonyWill.com. So, and then I'm on social media. I'm not hard to find. So until next time.